Okay.
Welcome to the YAHOWAH blog. This is our fourth episode of The Man from Edom. When I say man from Edom, I'm saying something that, well, until a matter of a few years ago, I might not even have recognized. And I would be quite certain that the vast preponderance of people who hear the phrase man from Edom have no idea who said it, what it means, what this individual is supposed to do. Why even mention a man from Edom? Correct? You might even be one of them that would have no idea as to why I would do a show on the man from Edom versus, well, we're already in our fourth episode. But as it turns out, the man from Edom is one of the most interesting prophetic individuals and all of the prophets throughout all of the Torah. There are very few individuals, and I'm not sure there is any other individual of whom a prophet is inspired to say that he will save a great many. It's Yasha, the Hebrew word for he will deliver, he will liberate, he will save, and then it's followed by Rob. Many, a great number of people. And obviously, this is speaking about an individual who is not Jewish, and yet the people he's saving are Jewish. Maybe it's the confusion over that causes it to be one of the most profoundly important prophecies that is never discussed, because it doesn't fit any of the religious scenarios. Jews aren't looking for a non-Jew to save them. Even their nameless Messiah that they expect to come, he's Jewish. And Jesus, as much as he is just a myth, and just as Christians are want to deny that he was a Jew, since they hate Jews, the fact of the matter is he can't be the man from Edom either. And Muhammad's was not nearly smart enough to get this far into the text to have even a clue as to what Yahshua would have been saying. He was illiterate, so wouldn't have been entirely his fault, and his God wasn't very bright. And since almost all the religiosity in the Quran comes from Talmud stories that rabbis in Yathrib sold to Muhammad, they didn't much care for this prophecy either, because the notion that a goy, a man from Edom, was going to save them was way beyond anything that they could fathom. So we're in a quandary. Humankind has been, as it relates to what this prophecy means. And I'm saying that I was quizzical as I was just saying that. How could you be unaware or curious as to, or even ignorant of the meaning of a prophecy from the greatest of the prophets, Yahshua, a prophet whom we have the entirety of his prophetic revelation in a scroll preserved in the caves above Qumran from beginning to end. And he says emphatically that the man from Edom comes in the last days, and he is attired in bloody red because, well, he is sacrificing himself to save the final remnant of Yisrael. And we're reading this in a book that introduced the Choder, this one unique individual among all people who have ever lived, who is imbued with the seven spirits of YAHOWAH, who is uniquely wise because YAHOWAH has facilitated his wisdom, who has understanding beyond all others because, again, he's been given the spirit of wisdom and of understanding, even the spirit of putting the entire story together, being the first person to do so, to explain God's presentation from beginning to end. In addition to the spirit of being exceedingly bold, courageous, capable. He has the spirit of Yahowah, the spirit also of a reverence and respect for Yahowah. And he has the spirit of knowing, of being aware and familiar. And that's the entire 11th chapter that speaks of how this individual is going to scribe this Nesh banner on behalf of God's people that's going to be lifted up in the last day. And here we are having this prelude, which is what we're doing now, going through the prophets, and this prelude to the most extraordinary prophetic figure. This man from Edom that ultimately saves Israel in the end. And my guess is that if you grew up in the Christian church, you never heard a sermon on it. Ever. Never heard it mentioned. In fact, there's more mention of the red heifer, as if the red heifer is actually a cow. And how the red heifer is going to redeem Israel in the end, then there is an understanding of the man from Edom. And it's very clear that he's an individual that's going to save many. I would tell you that no one even understood the Edom of Torah, which is the actual name of the individual. He is the bloody red man of the earth, who is productive and fruitful as a bull, is the one who has been convoluted to the red heifer. And he has a very important role on Towrah. But it's the same role as the man from Edom who arrives in the end. So that is what the story that we're pursuing. And I'm here to tell you that I don't think anyone has ever begun the process of trying to put it into context and understand what it's talking about until this very moment. And we were pondering the text of Yeshayah leading up to the presentation of this man from Edom, when we came across a statement where the great prophet equated this man, the Towrah, the Bashar of Yahowah, his coal voice, as the one who would call his people out of the wilderness, being estranged from him, and call them home, that he would speak for God. And so the last prophecy we read was actually taking a step back in Yeshayah to the 40th chapter, so we'd understand what was being conveyed in these chapters that lead up to the presentation of the Edom of Torah. And there we read, choose to change your thinking and relent. He's speaking to Israel, which is an essential. That is, there is no other message that is more important to what we are doing and what I'm doing here on the YAHOWAH blog. Beyond this idea, I want you to change your thinking, Israel. God wants you to change your thinking. If you don't change your approach, Israel, there is no hope for you. I mean, we're in a position where you've done the same thing for 3,450 years and it's not working. Choose to change your thinking and relent. And God says, you will be comforted. You'll be consoled, my people. Promises your God. Speak from the heart, exercising good judgment regarding Jerusalem, the source of guidance on reconciliation. Not the Vatican, not New York, not Washington, D.C., not London, not Paris, not Mecca. Jerusalem is the focus of Yahowah all the way to the very end. That does not change. It is the city of Dod, his beloved son. Kara, make an announcement, summoning her by reciting to her that indeed her battles can be over. Oh, and I'm here telling you, Israel, that while you've been fighting battles for the last 3,000 years, the worst is to come. You put yourself in a horrible position regarding Islam because you're afraid to acknowledge the nature of your enemy, preferring to lash out at symptoms. And so your battles can be over. They could be over tomorrow if you would simply change your thinking and relent regarding Yahowah. And finally, you will do so. The surviving remnant of Israel on Yom Teruah in 2033, 8.5 years from now, is going to do this very thing. And that's what it's prophetic of. So make the announcement, summoning her by reciting to her that indeed her battles could be over. The consequence of her missing the way will be pardoned through restitution, causing her to be accepted, gaining favor, regaining a favored position because she has obtained a double portion for all of her errant and mistaken ways. And this is the statement that caused us to turn back the pages in Yashayah to the 40th chapter. A coal voice calls out. In the wilderness where the word is questioned, Bamidbar, combination of mid, dabar. Me is to ponder the implications of, to question, if you will. It's an interrogatory. Dabar, which is the word. Turn around and choose to change your direction in life such that you are prepared for the way of Yahowah. You know, we had read that there was this mislala, this great ramp that was being prepared by this individual, the voice of Yahowah, to travel from man's corrupt and disintegrating world to God. And it is the way of God. But that way is not permissible to those who are not previously prepared. God has 5 conditions of his covenant that you must meet. The first of those, to walk to him, you must walk away from religion and politics. You must come to trust him and rely upon him, not your religion, not your politics, not your military. You must walk to him and become perfected, which is the purpose of Chag Matzah, a celebration that Jews no longer even observe. And come to be observant, closely examining and carefully considering the very terms and conditions that are so instructive regarding the covenant relationship. And of course, circumcise our sons on the 8th day so that we and they remember to be part of God's covenant family. These are conditions of the covenant, and you can't just pick one and say, well, I'm circumcised there, I'm good to go. No, you've got to do all of them. All of them must be accepted, or you're not welcome on that raised highway to God. You can't just celebrate Passover and say, I'm good to go. Next shot is Rosh Hashanah. No. Passover is just the first day of Matzah. Matzah is the 7-day celebration, and it includes Bikurim, and that leads to Shabuah, so that we can properly fulfill Teruah en route to the return of Yahowah and our Messiah, Dod, on Kippurim, so that we can camp out with our Father on Sukkah. That's the way. Of your own free will, choose to become straightforward and correct so that you are prepared for the Masilah, the raised highway, this elevated walkway through the dark and lifeless fabric of commingling and intermixing together that is so prevalent among the Arabs to approach our God. Prophetic, isn't it? It is away from, out of, and above those who have come and will return to wipe out Jews, that this raised highway will pass. If you want to survive the next onslaught, now you know the way. Every depression will be raised, and each elevated place of illicit worship will be brought down. The dome and the mosque will go. as will every cathedral and synagogue and mosque throughout the world. Then it will transpire that insidiously deceitful aspects, misappropriated ways which are not on the level, that which has been misconstrued will be removed and flattened over, such that the uneven terrain and the obstacles, these conspiracies which have made the way impassable, will be ripped apart and torn asunder. It is what we're doing. This is the job. It's 50% of the job anyway, is to expose and condemn religious lies so that the truth is more readily visible. The overall significance of Yahowah will be revealed, becoming more openly known, until I was tasked with writing these books, Yada Yahowah, and doing the Yahowah blog, and expressing Yahowah's name boldly and emphatically across the internet and social media. There was no one that was promoting the significance of Yahowah's name. And every Bashar, I am the Bashar, at least for our age, the herald of both the Dode, the Messiah, and of Yahowah, our God. Every Bashar proclamation of the human herald will reveal this, the importance of Yahowah's name, altogether and its entirety, the full story of our experience in Eden and how God is bringing us back into the garden. This is reliable because the peh, the mouth of Yahowah, has spoken it. A coal voice urges, Kara, read and recite, choosing to be called out and to be welcomed. So the prophet says, so I asked, what should I recite? Who should I invite to be called out? Who should I welcome? And what should I offer to read aloud and announce? Yahowah's answer, every Bashar, proclamation of the herald. The announcement for what we're doing right now on the Yahowah blog. It's the place to dwell, to live. And it's entirely loving, providing all of the benefits of the relationship. It's akin to a gleaming flower, a blossoming and shining, productive and flourishing bud, while spreading across the entire open terrain. Because the message of the Bashar is that Yahowah is returning the planet to the conditions experienced in Eden, which means there will be no religion and no politics and no militarism. And that those who will be welcome there will all be part of God's covenant family. And I'm sharing with you how to be part of this terraformed earth. But it says that this dwelling place will be gone for a while, the blossoming and gleaming flower. He will be treated with contempt for a moment, because truly the Ruach spirit of Yahowah, she blows like the wind, dispersing and driving forcefully away through him. The job of the Choder, we learned as we did those programs on the Choder from Isaiah 11, is more than a stem off the tree of lives, more than just a branch off of the tree of knowledge of both good and evil, God's way and the religious counter to it. He is also a rod used to get the attention of and to punish those who have been contrary to Yahowah and who have led so many astray. And so the seven spirits that imbue the Choder, this Bashar, the coal of Yahowah, well, those spirits not only convey wisdom, they not only provide understanding, they also condemn. And it is my job to keep Israel safe by driving the evil force of religion away, by pushing back on her political foes. And so the spirit of Yahweh will blow like the wind, driving them away. And it's going to become even more powerful upon my return with Elia when we're on atop the Temple Mount. We will be far greater than mortal. Insightfully, the abode and dwelling place is for the family, because the word of our God stands forever. The replica of the tent of the restoring witness will be placed on Mount Moriah, on the Temple Mount, once it's cleansed of the Islamic scars that currently corrupt it. And that will be the home for the family of God for the time that we are there. That is Yeshaya, Isaiah 41 through 8. So, the more we ponder the implications of Yeshaya, the more we come to appreciate that much of it exists to present the very mission and the implications of the Choder, who is the Bashar and Kol of God. Neither the prophet nor Yahweh wanted their people to disregard this individual or fail to listen to what he has to say. He is the man with the kara, invitation to come home. He is trying to redirect Yehudim back to Yahweh, to reintroduce God's people to the God whose name they erased. Now, continuing, please pay attention. Listen to Yahweh until the ends of the earth. Say unto the women in the environment surrounding the signs posted along the way, Zion, behold, your liberation and your salvation will come. Yasha. Look up and see his reward, which is his payment for safe passage. It is with him, as is his recompense, all in conjunction with his appearance. Yeshaya 62:11. We were in the midst of the 62nd chapter of Yeshaya when there was the mention of the coal voice and the Mesilah, the raised thoroughfare from our planet to heaven. When we took that brief diversion to understanding in the 40th chapter, we return now to the 62nd, en route to the 63rd, where the man from Edom is presented. So in this prelude to the man from Edom, we read the following, and I want you to consider it, to process it, please, from the perspective of what God is leading his prophet to reveal to you, Yisrael. He said, please pay attention. Listen to Shama. Hear Yahweh. You know, Israelites have made a ritual out of the Shema. And they say it multiple times a day. You know, hear Yisrael. The Lord is your God. The Lord is one. But that's not what the statement and Devarim says. It says, listen, Yisrael, Yahweh is God, and Yahweh is one, Echad. And here, it's begging God's people 7 centuries later to listen. 1470 or 1447, 48 BCE to 750 CE, 7 centuries later. God is still asking his people to listen to him. And how do you listen to Yahweh? Well, guess who is speaking through the prophet Yeshaya? Guess who is speaking to you now about what is revealed through the prophet Yeshaya? Yahweh. You want to listen to Yahweh? Listen to the mouth of Yahweh. You want to hear what Yahweh has to say? Listen to the voice of Yahweh. Yahweh is not going to speak directly to you again because you told him to shut up and go away. And Yahweh's got a really good memory. And so he is speaking to you through the likes of Yashayah, and through Yashayah, through me. You can scream and kick all you want. You can throw a tizzy fit and say, you're not going to listen to any damn goy. Well, there weren't any damn Yehudim for you to listen to. That's why you're listening to a damn goy. You stop listening. I didn't. He couldn't find a single Yehudim that was willing to listen to him. And so now he's speaking through a goy, and he's asking you to listen to him through this man from Edom, this Choder, this Bashar, this Cole. Then it's your choice. You can continue to throw a tizzy fit. You've been throwing a tizzy fit against God for 3,450 years. I guess why stop now, right? Working for you really well, isn't it? Had a great time, didn't you? With the Egyptians, with the Philistines, with the Assyrians, with the Babylonians, with the Macedonians, with the Romans 3 times, with the Holy Roman Empire, the Roman Catholic Church, the Muslims, multiple times, 3 times with them too. The Ottomans, well, that was fun, wasn't it? The Crusaders, more fun still. The Europeans, the disgusting Europeans, treated you like crap, didn't they? Put you in shettles. Oh, and then came the Nazis, the perfect expression of European hatred against Jews. And now you've got the progressives, and they're fanning the flames of Muslims who accuse you of genocide when they're committing genocide against you. So maybe, just maybe, you ought to try a different approach. Rather than erasing Yahweh's name and pushing him out of your lives, maybe try listening to him, see if things work out better. Listen to Yahweh until the ends of the earth. Say unto the women and the environment surrounding Zion. I read all the time people trying to condemn Zionists. I don't hate Jews, I just hate Zionists. And Zionists saying, well, all Zion means is the Jews have a right to their homeland. That's not what it means. Yahweh is a Zionist. Yahweh is the one who wrote the message on those signs. Zion means signs posted along the way. They're posted on the ridgeline of Moriah. They point from the home of Dod in the city of Dod up that ridgeline of Moriah right to the Temple Mount, to where Yahweh's home for his name once stood. And you don't even have the character, the courage to remove those ugly, nasty scars that sit on top of it now. You wouldn't have a clue what's written on those signs posted along the way, while those blights remain on the Temple Mount. I'll change that. I'm going to obliterate them. I'm hoping you do it before I arrive. But if you don't, I will. Because those signs can't be read while all of the religious rubbish surrounds the way. And what does it say? That because of what's written on the signs posted along the way, and because of the fact that Yahweh is being listened to again through this man from Edom, that you can experience both liberation and salvation, even at the conclusion of the time of Jacob's troubles, when there is a Holocaust that is far worse than the one you suffered in the prior century. When there's a 10-7 that's 1,000 times more vicious. There's salvation. There's salvation, by the way, for you right now. Listen to Yahweh. Embrace his name. Accept the terms and conditions of the covenant. Celebrate the Moed Mikre, Pesach, Matzah B'Kurim, Shabuah, Towrah, Kippurim, and Sukkah as they were intended. But even if you don't, if you remain recalcitrant and decide, I'm going to wait to the last minute, if you're one of the fortunate survivors to become part of that mortal remnant of Israel in the end, behold, your salvation will come. And who is it that Yahshua told you was going to save you? The man from Edom. Look up and see. Pay attention. His reward, which is payment for passage, it's with him, as is his recompense, all in conjunction with his appearance. Yahweh could have said this of himself, but he's not that kind of God. Yahweh's the kind of God. He happens to be the only kind of God, but nonetheless, I can speak of Yahweh's characteristics in this way, who likes to share credit. He chooses to work through people at every possible opportunity. And you may not like his choices. Clearly, rabbis don't like Dode based upon that hideous movie, House of David, that they contributed to, and all of their ridiculous rubbish that they write about him. You may not like who God chooses. You may not like Moshe, so they made up a Talmud and called it their own Torah because they didn't like what he had to say. You may not like it. Tough. God's universe, he gets to choose who he wants to work with. And this time he chose a Goy. Not because he prefers Goys to Yehudim. That's not the reason at all, because he prefers Yehudim to Goys. It's just that there was no way to have a relationship with Yehudim if he didn't form this relationship with this Goy to get their attention and bring them back home. The payment for passage is the sacrifice of the Edom of Torah. You read all about it in Numbers 19. It's something that I don't think there's, in fact, I can say for certain, there isn't a single person on earth who understood it prior to me explaining it. And I explain it in this very volume that we are examining, and we will get to the details of it as we move into past Shabuah to Towrah. I thought there would be at least 100 programs in this one volume. This is the volume we are considering. We're still in the first portion, considering the Katsir harvest on that series of programs. And that series of programs is what it leads us to the sacrifice of the Edom of Torah as it is laid out for us in Bamidbar, Numbers 19. Its purpose is to prepare the adulterous woman, which is why this speaks of females. Began by saying, say unto the woman, the women in this environment, the bath, the daughters, is because Yahweh is looking at this moment, Yisrael is the adulterous woman. And the ultimate bridegroom is returning, the Messiah and King. And Yahweh wants a wedding ceremony. He wants to undo the divorce. And he is positioning Dode, the returning king, as the ultimate groom, and Yisrael as the adulterous woman whom he wants to have this relationship with that has to be prepared because she's filthy. And the payment for passage, just as the Passover lamb opens the door to life by his sacrifice, I open the safe passage for the adulterous woman by providing recompense. It's this uniform story that God is telling. And again, doesn't mean anything to me whether or not you choose to accept God's story. You benefit from it or you turn it down. I'm unaffected either way. My job is to share it with you so that you're without excuse, so that you know what God is offering and who he is offering it through and what you need to do to capitalize. I'll make that story and that information available to you as clearly as I can articulate it. And then what you do with it is up to you. My job isn't to drag you kicking and screaming as Yahweh did during the first Exodus. My job is to invite you as clearly and as intelligently and as consistently as is possible. Look and see his reward, which is his payment for safe passage. It's with him, as is his recompense. It's the direct result of the consequence of what he will accomplish through his very material approach here, offering both reward and punishment. And that goes right back to the Towrah. The Towrah is both an object to punish those who have harmed God's people and as the source of new life for those who are embracing Yahweh in the end. This is all in conjunction with his appearance. And it is his appearance in two ways. Yes, I'm going to appear at that time on the Temple Mount, overlooking the city of Dod, cleansed of Al-Aqsa Mosque. And I'm going to have Elia invite the corporeal manifestation of Hasatan, who will be in the city at that time, to take my life. The final sacrifice. He hates me, so it'll be natural to him to do so. And he's going to bludgeon me, just as Imperial Rome as the beast bludgeoned Dod as the Messiah. And Yahweh is going to turn that sacrifice into something spectacular for his people, just as he did with the sacrifice of Dod's Bashar body on Passover. There's two sacrifices that men make on behalf of God's people. This is the second of the two. And it is being made for the greater of the two, which is Dod. So the message is for Yisrael, as the adulterous woman of Bamidbar 5, that she should listen, and that the Edom of Numbers 19 will prepare her to be betrothed to the returning Messiah, and therefore reconciled in the relationship with Yahweh. This is the story from beginning to end. Between the Passover lamb and the red heifer, which it really isn't a red heifer, it's errantly translated. Adamah means is a bloody red man of the earth, which is very important because he's both mortal, he is going to be bloodied and red. He is a man, and he is productive, he is fruitful, and he is a bull. You know, in the symbols, Dod has two symbols associated with him, the Messiah. He is the Lion of Judah who roars, but he's also the Passover lamb. I am the bull. My job is to stamp out and kick out demons of every ilk, from false gods to the demons who harm God's people because of their religious beliefs. It's my job. And ultimately, I will lay down my life for Yisrael. And I do so on the most appropriate days, because remember, this was speaking twice of the herald that you should listen to. Well, the day of the herald is Yom Teruah. You might recognize it if I were to tell you by the name that you now have corrupted it. You call it Rosh Hashanah, in name of the Babylonian New Year. That's how far rabbis have led you astray. So if you're willing to go back to Yahweh's terminology and celebrate it correctly, and you've survived to this point through the time of Jacob's troubles, it is the Adam Parah that will pay the passage for you to be present at the family reunion on Yom Kippurim, and doing so on the day of the herald as the herald. Safe passage home. for the ultimate family reunion and day of reconciliations. This is God's invitation to return and offer of redemption. Just don't miss it. And if you're bothered by the fact that a man is speaking to you about these things and claiming to be the embodiment of God's message to you, then you may want to think it through, because I can't emphasize this enough. God revealed himself directly to you, and you told him to shut up and go away. And since that time, he's only spoken to you through a select number of individuals. And he has hundreds and hundreds of prophecies regarding this one. At this time, for your benefit, right now, he is not going to give you another reminder. This is it. And you either accept this message from him in this way now, or there will be no tomorrow. God's not messing around. Time has run out. Therefore, what's the verb again? Kara. Have you ever heard of anybody presenting Kara to you intelligently? Telling you what Kara represents? Ever? Have the rabbis ever told you that Kara is the verb that is calling you out of this world? That is inviting you to attend the 7 Moed Mikra and to capitalize upon them so that you can meet with God and be welcomed into his company. That's what Kara means. That's why it's the actionable root of Mikra. Anybody else tell you that before? Don't you think it's important? Why would they not reveal that truth to you when it's so profoundly important? Therefore, they shall be Kara, invited and welcomed as what? HaKodesh, the set-apart family. Not set apart to Judaism, not set apart to Rome, not set apart to Christianity, not set apart to YAHOWAH. Set apart as a family unto Yahowah. That is why we're doing this. God wants you to come home. He's offering this invitation to you. He's trying to welcome you into his loving embrace. He wants to call you once again what you have not been for a very long time and have only been ever so briefly. HaKodesh, the set-apart family, the people who are separated, unique, special, and uncommon. Those being redeemed by Yahweh. Yahweh is the reason that Israel will be redeemed. He is the power behind the redemption. It's just that Yahweh doesn't work alone. So he's explaining this to you through the likes of Yashayah and myself. And he will implement this through the likes of Dode and Yada. He's going to deliver your ransom. Then, by the way, just to reemphasize this point, if the redemption is coming from Yahweh, what are the chances of you being welcomed into the set-apart family if you're unwilling to say his name, if you're unwilling to acknowledge his name, if you're irritated every time someone proclaims his name? Yahweh, Yahweh, Yahweh. Then you will be called, sought after, aware and known, accounted for and looked after in a relationship. Be a city of occupants who who are no longer forsaken. Lo Azab. Oh my God, you were Azab back through the prophet Hosea, when he was encouraged to wed a temple prostitute so that he might understand and have empathy for God's plight with Jews constantly being married to their religions, cheating on him through religious gods and religious men. And as a result, he acknowledged that he divorced his people. This is the reconstitution of that relationship. It's why the Edom of Torah cleanses the adulterous woman so that she can be betrothed to her returning Messiah and King, Dod. And it's all going to occur in Jerusalem. And so you can be Israel again sought after, because Dod wants to embrace you. He wants you to be his bride. And he wants you to live and thrive in the city of Dod, no longer estranged and forsaken. Yeshayah 62:12. Now that is the preamble in its entirety that is devoted to the Choder, the Kol, and Bashar, as well as to his Nesh, which serves to introduce Yisrael to the one who comes from Edom. We begin with the question, who is this man? Ze, he, the one, masculine singular, who comes at this time, Bo, who arrives and returns at this very moment, call, participle, perfect, absolute, active, third person, masculine, singular, out of Edom, from those influenced by the bloody red nature of Rome. Esau is the basis of Edom, and Esau was called hairy and red. Edom is based upon Adam, which means bloody red. And it extrapolates the concept according to the name as it's presented as hairy. Hairy and red. Esau. Are you familiar with the title Caesar? You know what it means in Latin? Hairy. How about the color red? What nation among all empires is most known for the bloody red uniforms of its soldiers and for the bloody red that it paraded under? The blood that it shed. Rome. It doesn't say that he is a Roman, although it does say that he is coming out of Edom. And this would mean that A, he cannot be a Yisraelite. He is not a Yehudim. He is exactly as Nakar and Nakri convey. He's an observant foreigner. Be pissed off if you want to, Yisrael, that he can't be one of your rabbis, that he can't be one of your politicians, that he can't be one of you, although he acts more like God's intent for you and acts more Yahud than any Yahud today. He is more Yisraelite than any Israelite today. He is Yisraelite by choice. He identifies as Yahud. But he is coming out of bloody Rome. My DNA quarrels with my attitude. Attitudinally, I identify as a Yehud. My commitment is to Yisrael. But my genes affirm that I am this man. I am Celtic Romano. I come from a enclave between really France and England that these Celts and the Romans both occupied, that actually had a very high coefficient of Yisraelite Cohen, who's there, which is why my DNA carries that marker. I am the man from Edom. Quite literally. But of course, Edom means more than that, because it means bloody red. Speaking of the bloody red nature of Rome and Roman Catholicism, which I have come out from, if you will. I have denounced. I have done what God requires. If you look at Moshe, for example, the first of the Zeroah, Moshe came out of and away from the bloody red tyrants of the black land of Mitzrayim. He denounced them. He walked away from them. He separated himself from them. There's no one who has done a more complete job of separating himself out of the politics and religions of Rome. Politics of Rome. Where is Capitol Hill today? The United States, isn't it? Where's the Senate today? The United States, isn't it? Which is the country that uses the symbol of the Aquila, the eagle? The United States, isn't it? Which is the country that has put each of its political buildings, built them in the model of ancient Rome? Yes, it's the United States. I have denounced my national affiliation. I have denounced my prior religious affiliation. I have come out of these things. And I have most certainly renounced the Roman Catholic Church for all of its evils against God's people. So who is this man who comes at this time out of, away from Edom? In reddish, it's chamutz, crimson, brilliant and vibrant red, that which was yeasted, corrupted, and ruthless, cruel, and oppressive garments. From the sheepfold to gather and protect. Matzra, from a fortified place, from matzar, to gather, to fortify, and protect, which is the job. He is the one. Zeh. He is the individual man who is shown great favoritism and is respected, Hadar, who is honored on high and treated with distinction, unique among men, considered noble, of very high class, among the best of men. Someone who is inspiring. You may not see me that way. Doesn't matter, really, does it? Because God does. Therefore, he is suitably adorned and arrayed, striding purposefully in the abundance of his influence and authority. Koach, his power and might, his potential and ability, his authorization, and by means of his qualifications and accomplishments. Want to see my qualifications? Look at the books behind me. I've written 36 of them over the last 23 and a half years. I'm now the living library, the repository of all of those books and all of the knowledge that I have obtained by translating in amplified fashion the very words of Yahowah as revealed through his prophets from the oldest extant sources, making the connections to understand, deriving insights that thousands of which are unheralded throughout time. All this so that you would know the entire story. My authority is in these words. This is one of many hundreds of prophecies pertaining to what you are listening to what you're witnessing, to the one looking right at you and speaking directly to you. Yahowah then concludes this opening salvo in Isaiah 63:1 with something we read nowhere else among any of the prophets. What he is saying is so important to Israel, so essential to the very survival of his people. He says, I am sharing this message accurately, correctly, verifiably, honestly, and forthrightly to deliver and save a great many. Because it is Yahweh who revealed to Yahowah that the man from Edom will do these very things. And he wants his people to know. I am sharing this message accurately, correctly, honestly, and forthrightly to deliver and save, yasa, to rescue, liberate, freeing, rob a great many, the vast preponderance of people. Yahowah 63:1. The Zebo men Edom, the man who comes from Edom, is a single individual male arriving at this time. He, like the Nakar, is a foreigner and thus not a Israelite. And that makes him particularly unique in God's story. But not totally. Adam, Towrah, Noach, all of the wives and sons and were Goyim, were they not? How about Abraham and Sarah, even Lot? Goyim, were they not? They were Babylonian. Can't get any more Goyim than that. How about Ishak, Ishmael, Goy? Even Esau, Goy too. And Jacob was born a Goy. It is only Jacob's descendants who became known as the Israelites. God began his story with a non-Israelite, not just one, but many. The way to the covenant, the entire narrative pursuant to the covenant, was conveyed through a Babylonian. The way home, by way of that covenant, is now being manifest through a man who came from descendancy through Rome. God's story has come full circle, has it not? So the Zebo men, Edom, the man, this one, who arrives from Edom, is not only a single individual male approaching at this time. He is just like that Nakar, which means observant foreigner. He is not a Israelite. He is also distinguished by the proclamation that he will Yasher Rab, deliver and save many. This is said of no one else anywhere in the prophets. Now, Edom speaks of the descendants of Esau, the brother of Jacob, who was ostracized. He's going to bring the family back together. He was so named because he was hairy and red, which is symbolic of Roman red, and the Caesars, which means hairy in Latin. This recognition and identification with the beast of imperial Rome that became the Roman Catholic Church helps explain why Yahweh said that he hated him, not for who he was, but for what he represented. and considered him hostile, vicious, and deadly. And so God is using a descendant of that horrible culture to show you that when immersed in the truth, when you accept the terms and conditions of the covenant, when you attend the Moed Mikre as they were designed, when you listen to Yahweh, he can perfect the imperfect. He can use a tool that comes out of bloody Rome to save his people. Rather than killing his people, this one will save his people, because the difference is this one listened to Yahweh while the others listened to gods of their own making. And this time he will be effective because Yisrael, rather than listening to their rabbis, rather than listening to their religious pundits, will start listening to him as he speaks for Yahweh. The man coming out of Edom, however, is distancing himself from the nastiness of Rome, just as Abraham and Moshe walked away from Babel and from Mitzrayim. This is the final Exodus. And it wasn't until they distanced themselves from Babylon, and Mitzrayim, Egypt, that they were approached by and usable to Yahweh. As such, it is germane to acknowledge, as I have shared, that my DNA reveals that I have Romano-Celtic heritage, while my witness proves that I have disassociated from, renounced, and denounced all prior political and religious affiliations. I have come clean of them. I oppose them. And I'm like Moshe in this regard because I know religion. I know politics. I was once immersed in it. And I came to reject it. And that makes me a much more effective witness. It's just as when Yahweh chose Moshe amongst all the people on the planet to go and rescue his people, this broken down 80-year-old shepherd in the wilds of Arabia. The reason was that he was the only person on the planet that knew and understood the politics, the religion, the militarism, and the caste system economics of Mitzrayim, of Egypt, and had chosen to reject them and to disassociate them from them. Just as I was an ideal candidate for exactly the same reasons. All these years later, I was consistent. These are the bookends of the Zeroah that draw attention to the greatest of the Zeroah, David, who was a very different case than the two, the beginning and the final Zeroah, who have so much in common. Dod was different in that he was chosen by Yahweh at 8 years old. He was out there in Bethlehem tending sheep. And therefore, there was no religiosity that had to be expunged. There was no basis of anything other than the purity of what Yahweh wanted in this relationship to convey. And so he started with a very young man in the middle position, as it should be. Now, the reddish garments obviously caught Yahshaiah's attention, which is why he makes a big deal of them. And it is because they are stained in blood. The man from Edom is sacrificed as the Adam of Parah. He is the bloody red man of the earth, who is a productive bull on the day of the herald, offering his life to save the mortal remnant of Yisrael, God's lost sheep. He will gather them on the evening of Towrah during the gleaning, and then he will protect them the following day as the final sacrificial offering of the Moedim, the restoring witnesses to the eternal testimony. In this way, the man from Edom will spare many, delivering a vast number of Israelites from their own misconceptions. Since I did not write this and have never sought to claim, should you be among those who don't like anyone acknowledging that they have been appointed by God, or more, that they are hadar, favored and respected by God, as this text reveals? Take your complaints up with Yahowah. The truth is that God found a choder, a sucker, and he enabled him as a nakar, an observant foreigner. We have collaborated on a nesh, sign, and a mis'illah, a raised thoroughfare. And upon their completion, Yahweh's Bashar, herald, serves as his coal voice, going from a very prolific writer and a person who has composed all of these books, all of which are free at yadayah.com, to being a vociferous blogger. I've been doing this now for 100 days, and there are 200 blog entries. For being resilient and steadfast, uncommonly devoted, and yes, very bold, deriving thousands of insights en route to being the first to present the entire story from Eden and back to the garden, Yahweh sees the man from Edom as distinguished and inspiring. And he's not alone, because Yashayah and Dod are impressed. Well, as is my wife. And well, that means something to me, even if it doesn't mean anything to anyone else. So I have 4 that view me. In fact, there's a whole lot more than that. The work that we have done is meaningful. And really, all that really matters in the end is one. Anytime we do what our God wants us to do, and we are devoted to it and steadfast in our approach, then the one who matters is pleased, and the job gets done. The reference to being lebush, suitably arrayed, and is funny, since I have a rather fondness for being casual. I present most of the Yahowah blogs comfortably attired, sending a really subtle message. I'm not trying to impress anyone. The words, now they're impressive, but they're from God. And in spite of the bare feet or flip-flops today, I'm wearing flip-flops, so I'm really dressed up, I have striven purposefully since we began 24 years ago, never wavering, never veering off course. I know the objective. I'm aware of the path to it. And I'm cognizant of the time crunch that we're under. And I know that the man from Edom, the Goy serving Yahweh on behalf of Yehudim, will save a great many. You see, Israel, I'm not claiming to be over you. I'm serving you. I'm the one laying down my life to save you. So, if you have a problem with that, my advice is to get over yourselves. You might even want to be grateful. I know that's too much to ask. I'm sorry for bringing it up. It is true, however, that I began our relationship with Yahweh in my comfort zone. That's why I moved to this island in the middle of the sea. I crave anonymity. I enjoy being an unknown voice conveying an important message. And I was anonymous as Yada, my chosen pen name for the first decade that I served in this capacity. But that all changed. And it changed because I was confronted by the realization that there were no other candidates for the choder. There was a score of other descriptive titles throughout the prophets that Yahweh chose to portray, and did so talking about this mission in concert with them throughout the prophets, hundreds upon hundreds of times. I don't even know how many. There's so many instances of this. Most of the book of Yeshayah pertains to it. The first mentions are all the way back in the Torah. In fact, the first mention happens to be on the fourth day of creation and the relative role of the greater and lesser luminary. Yeah, I'm the lesser guy. I'm the moon that reflects the sun's light. The sun is Dod. And together, we are the ones who fulfill the Moed, which is why Yahweh explained it that way. Dod got the first three. I get the next three. Yahweh handles the rest from there, the seventh. And so I came to realize and to share that I was serving under the koach, the influence and authority of Yahweh. If Yahweh wants this known, and he does, then I would be an unfaithful servant to keep it hidden. I go where the words lead, and this is what they say. And just because I would prefer anonymity, I can't go there. I can't remain there, because Yahweh wants his influence through the Choder, the Nakar, the Bashar, the Kol, the final Zeroah, the Adamah Parah, this very man who comes out of Edom at this time, known to his people. He wants you to be able to identify him and to trust him, to listen to him, and respond accordingly. Now, there is only one other place in the whole of the Torah, Nabi wa Mizmor, where we read something akin to an admission. I am sharing this message accurately and truthfully. And that is when Yahweh is acknowledging that the promises that he made to his beloved son, Dod, are vows that he will never break. And since in the Messiah's case, his Bashar, body, served to fulfill Pesach as the El, the lamb, the inference here as that the man from Edom will save many as the Adamah Parah, the bloody red man of the earth who is a productive bull on Towrah, the day of the Bashar, herald. Yahweh wants his people to know that there is a foreigner who will walk in Dod's footsteps that you can follow home. If I might read this summation of Yeshayah 63:1. Who is the one who comes at this time out of Edom in reddish garments from the sheepfold to gather, to fortify, and protect? Where's the sheepfold? It's where Dod was found when Yah anointed him Messiah and led him to be king. He is the one who is shown great favoritism, and he is treated with distinction and respected. Therefore, he is suitably adorned and arrayed, striding purposefully and forthrightly, with a sense of integrity and urgency, and the abundance of his authority and influence, qualifications and accomplishments. I am sharing this message accurately and honestly, so that many are liberated, rescued, delivered, and saved. I thank you for listening to this episode of the YAHOWAH blog, focused on the man from Edom, will return in the 5th installment on another day. Thank you.